Hey there, guys. Thank you for joining me today on this Saturday Supercade. This is episode 2. Now, I've got to say straight off that, unfortunately, I am waiting on a new old, if there's such a thing, a new old TV to come in. The previous TV that I had on last week's episode, I realized after the fact, I didn't have all of this knowledge regarding TVs and the types of TVs to play games on, etc., etc. But evidently, the old Nintendo, the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and consoles of some subsequent generations, I think up to like maybe generation 5, the experts would know. But yeah, they were designed to run off of CRT tube style television sets. And the TV that I had last week was not a CRT TV. Now, granted, it gets the job done as far as putting something on a screen and having a little visual, but I tried, after actually a suggestion from somebody they made a last comment on the last video, and they said that, yeah, their timing is different with a CRT TV versus a non-CRT, the more modern, recent television sets. And I found that interesting, so I tried Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on this old CRT TV, which is horrible shape. The picture quality is absolutely terrible, but it's a night and day difference. Like, I blew through everybody, all the way up through Super Macho Man, and then I stopped there and realized that, okay, well, let me look into a CRT TV. And I did. I scoured Facebook Marketplace. I was trying to find one that perhaps somebody was giving away for free. They just didn't want one anymore. I wasn't so lucky. And unfortunately, I had to put some money out into getting a CRT TV. And it's on the way. So hopefully by next video, I'll have that. So what I thought I would do in this video is, even though I'm not going to be playing a game this week, I intend to next weekend, I would like to go over some of the old Nintendo games that I have in my collection. I have quite a few. I'm not exactly sure of the count, but I have my original games that I had as a kid. And then I also have the ones that I accumulated, I'd say, gosh, I don't know, probably the last one that I bought was probably when I was in my 20s. This was in the early 2000s. And yeah, so without further ado, the first game that you will see, obviously, is Final Fantasy. And I remember going to a video store, I think it was called Major Video at the time, and renting this game. And Final Fantasy, of course, is huge. Anybody and everybody in the gaming world has heard of Final Fantasy. They even have their own trading card game, for goodness sake. So, but back then, when I saw this on the shelf and when this came out, that was not the thing. This was actually meant to be a, literally, Final Fantasy. It was a one-shot deal. And if you look into the history of the game, etc., the experts could tell me more, but from what I recall, the company, Enix, or Squaresoft, was actually in the late stages of their lifespan. They figured that this is going to be our last shot. We're going to put this out and be done with it. And that's essentially one of the reasons, if not the main, why they called it Final Fantasy. Well, we're at Final Fantasy 16 now. And, you know, generally it's a game that's produced every few years. So anyway, I rented this game. And yeah, but I had a good buddy of mine and my brother, and we had sleepovers during the summer. And we started at my house, and then eventually went over to his house, and that's where I beat it, fought Chaos, defeated him. But yeah, this little game, let's see if I can take it out. Yeah, got a little stand there. But this is the original. It's not in the best condition, which is fine. It's okay. This is my original. Includes 84-page Explorer's Handbook, Game World and Dungeon Maps, plus full-color monster chart. Absolutely loved this game. Dragons and broadswords, mystery and adventure, Final Fantasy has them all. An evil shroud covers the world in darkness. You must restore the powers of earth, wind, fire, and water to the 4 orbs. Create your own band of 4 light warriors from fighters, thieves, martial artists, and magicians. You'll need all their skills to triumph in this massive role-playing adventure. Your treacherous journey takes you to all parts of a strange new world, Explore dangerous castles and dark caverns where deadly perils and great rewards await at every turn. Hundreds of ferocious monsters block your path. With patience, skill, and cunning, you can defeat them. Come, begin your quest. Enter an enchanted new world. Command your warrior. Prepare to face the final fantasy. A world shrouded in the darkness of evil. Your mission to restore the light. And that's the world map view. That's kind of when you encounter individuals out in the world. And yeah, that's the fight screen. I find it interesting. You can see the screen. The shape is the old style CRT curved screen. And that's, again, what these games were made for. When you play a lot of these, all of them actually, these old games on a non-CRT TV, when they originally built these games, it was built to be within the structure, the configuration, the timing. There's all kinds of math that's involved. And yeah, it's a thing. So would that stop me from hooking up to a non-CRT TV and plugging away? Oh, heck no. I'd still do it. But yeah, if you're really trying to do your best and provide the best experience possible to your viewers, you need a CRT TV, technically. I'm curious. I haven't opened this in forever, but it feels kind of heavy, like a little weight to it. And there it is. The beat up original manual of Final Fantasy. And I'm not going to go over the whole thing, obviously, or any of it, really. But yeah, gosh. As a kid, man, it just, I was, big into sports, of course. But I was also big into gaming. We had a field right across from my parents' house. I've told this story before, when I was growing up. And yeah, we used to play all the sports, especially baseball, ton of baseball. And whenever we wanted a break, we would come back, run inside, hook up the Nintendo, have a ball, and then go back out and play again. So I'm going to go ahead and go over some other games that I have. I'll probably go through I've got like towers of games here. I'll go over one at a time. So this guy, The Legend of Zelda, this is what, Super Mario Brothers technically started me off with the old Nintendo. And as a little kid, I did have an Atari 2600 before the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I can get into that in another video. But once, 1985 came, and, we moved to this side of the lake, the North Shore in the greater New Orleans area, the Nintendo had come out. And, night and day blew away the Atari 2600 across the board. It didn't mean that I didn't have my favorites with the Atari still, but yeah, Nintendo. And so The Legend of Zelda, the gold case alone, the little signet, the banner there, I've always been a fan of medieval fantasy, as well as sci-fi, Star Wars. I was born in the Star Wars. But this was I would be willing to bet that this game and its impression that it made on kids, from the look of it, the feel of it, and the play and the story, had more of an impact on us back then than probably any other video game from purchase to play today. Now, granted, that's at the time when we didn't know any better. We didn't have graphics that were better than this here. So our mindsets, it's a totally different ball game. But anyway, I'd be curious to know what you guys think about that. Legend of Zelda, epic. And yeah, I remember when I beat this game, it was on a morning before school. And I killed Ganon and jumped on a bus, told all my friends about it. And yeah, some of them believed me, some of them didn't. But it's okay. That's how it works. Then you've got the sequel, The Adventure of Link. I got to be honest with you guys. When this game first came out, I had $40 that I had saved. I think it was, actually, it might have been Christmas money. Can't remember. And I remember Mom took me to a Kmart, and I could not wait for this game. I bought it. I was so excited. I'm like, okay, we've got Zelda 2, right? The Adventure of Link, another journey of ultimate challenge in the fantasy world of Hyrule. So I'm thinking I'm going to have a continuation of like the first experience. No, sir. Totally different ball game altogether. The look of the game, the feel of the game, the whole way of the game. Outside of the gold awesomeness that is the cartridge, that was really the only similarity, in all honesty, to the original Zelda for me. Highly disappointed. And I did eventually beat it. It's an extremely difficult game, but with grit and determination, I did indeed beat it. That actually reminds me, the Adventure of Link, it reminds me of the Castlevania 1 and Castlevania 2. Pretty much same story. Nintendo, granted, I give them kudos for their innovation, but sometimes they do step on a landmine, and man, when it goes wrong, it goes wrong. And that's an example. What do we have here? David Crane's A Boy and His Blob. Trouble on Blobalonia by Absolute Entertainment. I do have some recollections of this game. This was very popular back in the day. A Boy and His Blob. Yeah, I'll be curious to know if any of you guys and girls have memories on any of these particular titles that I'm showing today. And this is in no particular order. It's just the way that they happen to be stacked down here. Gauntlet by Tengen. Huge in the arcades. I loved it for the medieval fantasy factor and the roleplay factor. But Gauntlet's an example, and Mr. 95 Cents would be able to tell you this, I'm sure. But this is an example of a game that was a quarter sinker, especially if you're playing multiplayer. You got your buddies there counting on you, and if you happen to drop out, your character drops. Well, they're like, hey, man, we're still in a game. So what do you have to do? Bust out more quarters to keep going. And that was, how those arcades made so much bank. Another thought that I have looking at the art, because I'm a big fan of a lot of the art. I would love a trading card set made from all of the Nintendo Entertainment System game art. And really that could be said for just about any video game system. But yeah, NES, Nintendo trading cards. I mean, it would be even more epic if you had possible signatures. Shigeru Miyamoto's signature, can you imagine? Or somebody that worked with the game. I don't know how they would do mem cards exactly. That would be awesome. Oh, man. You would have programmer jersey relics, patch relics. Anyway, Metroid. So a classic and a legend of a game here. Published by Nintendo, of course. And yeah, I remember my first experience with Metroid. And finally getting up to Mother Brain. Oh, I loved Metroid. And it's, Nintendo has some of its legacies where, actually going back to Metroid. So, when we played this as kids for the first time, I remember as time went on, some of my friends, schoolmates and all, yeah, did you know that your main guy's a girl? I'm like, it's not a girl, it's a guy. At that time, for the vast majority of games, heroes, we didn't have, I'm trying to remember if they came up with an Aliens game, because I would have loved to play as Ripley in Aliens. That's one of the first female, I call, heroines that I just thought was killer cool, was Sigourney Weaver as Ripley. But, and now that I'm thinking about it, actually it makes sense with Metroid. That's probably why they made Samus Aran a female, probably an ode to Ripley. I would have to dig into that. I'm curious. But it wasn't until you beat the game, and I think you do it in a certain way. I can't remember, but she reveals her 8-bit swimsuit. And you're like, oh my gosh, I was playing a female character the whole time. Mega Man. Who does not remember Mega Man? Another franchise hit by Capcom spawned a whole collection of continuations in the storyline of Mega Man. And this was a game, most of these games were rented first before buying. Actually, I do have a story on Mega Man. So I was a very determined player. I still am. I still game. And I think the most challenging game that I've played within the last 10 or so years probably Bloodborne. That is an extremely difficult game for anybody who has not played, or if you're looking for a hardcore challenge. And I played that through, and then I played it again on like New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus. Yeah. A lesson in pain and patience, ultimatum, for sure, with Bloodborne. But anyway, going back to Mega Man and lessons of pain and patience as well. Yeah, I remember running this, and the last guy out of the little minions that you have to face that I chose was Iceman. And for whatever reason, the Iceman stage on this cartridge, or actually it wasn't this one, it was the cartridge that I rented from the store. But for whatever reason, you could not see the pits. This is a side-scrolling game for those that may not know. And for those who do finally remember, yeah, they had pits. You couldn't see them. It was all ice. For whatever reason, it was a glitch. And there was no way I was going to let this game go back to the rental store without me beating it. So I memorized where the pits were and, yeah, eventually beat the stage. Crazy, I know, but that was my mindset back then. And every time I got a Nintendo game or played one, it was a challenge. And, you know, the game, the end-all result was to beat the game by whatever means necessary. Now we have Star Wars, the first Star Wars by JVC, Lucasfilm Games, and it was definitely a step up from the Atari 2600 Star Wars entries. Doesn't, you know, not the cool factor of what you played in the arcades in the very early 80s for those who remember, but still, it, you know, I think it begins on the sands of Tatooine, which is fitting, and it was still a fun experience. The play control and it wasn't the best, but you know, it suited the need. Ghostbusters. I remember it being it's got some dust on these guys. I remember it being an okay game. A lot of the games based off of the movies really kind of, you felt shortchanged. Fortunately, this was by Activision, a great company, and knew them prior from the Atari 2600 days. And yeah, some may have really fond memories of this game, but I just remember, oh, it's cool, I'm playing Ghostbusters. The best Ghostbusters game by far, for me, was the release, I think it was 2016, and I think I got it for the PlayStation, I do believe. But yeah, it has, the graphics are amazing, story's amazing, and they have the voices of the 4 original Ghostbusters. Plus the secretary, what was her name? Oh, something Jean? Gosh, I can't remember. But yeah, it had all the 4 original actors in that game. Then we have G.I. Joe, the Atlantis Factor. I was huge into G.I. Joe. And I still love the lore of G.I. Joe. You know, the cartoon has its, as a kid, you think it's the best thing since sliced bread. It has its corny moments for sure, but we were kids, and we loved every minute of it. I'm assuming that's General Hawk. That's Storm Shadow for sure. When he kind of turned a leaf, decided I'm going to get away from Cobra and fight alongside my brother-in-arms, Snake Eyes, who both trained under the Blind Master. But yeah, G.I. Joe was fun. That was a fun game, and I remember playing that. With all these little Nintendo games, you kind of had to find your groove, I'll say. They were more often than not extremely challenging, unforgiving, and yeah, you just had to play it over and over and over again until you got good, as they say. Sunsoft titled here, Return of the Joker. Batman, Return of the Joker. Love me some Batman. I do remember definitely playing the heck out of the first Batman game, and the Joker is, man, physical manifestation of video game hell. Very difficult. And unless there's a trick to him, which I don't recall, man, you will just about pull your hair out fighting the Joker. Very RNG. But there might be a trick that I'm not aware of. Oh, wow. Looks like we've got a Batman smorgasbord here. Batman Returns, the second installment. My favorite Batman by far, the Michael Keaton 89 Batman movies. And of course, the 66 Batman, obviously that has its own place in our hearts. But as far as the motion pictures go, the 89 Batman, Michael Keaton just takes the cake. And the Batman Returns, it wasn't as good, in my opinion, but still, it was something. You got Danny DeVito there as a Penguin, Michelle Pfeiffer, who did an amazing Catwoman, in my opinion. But yeah, man, I love that whole 89 Batman. That was a Konami title. Speaking of Batman, this was the first on the Nintendo. Batman, the video game. Man, I had a lot of fun with this game. And yeah, again, the Joker. That was by Sunsoft. And I'm just going to go over about 5 more of these. And that'll blow through our tower. Little black cases for those that remember. And actually a Funko Land case. Does anybody remember Funko Land? So here's an example of a Nintendo game that's one of the earliest and one of the most lackluster. Hide-Lied. Looking at the graphics, again, trading cards, please. Oh, I would love it. But the graphics, the artwork, amazing. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, this is what I'm getting into. But it's by FCI. Very basic graphics. Gameplay easily could have been a Atari 2600 port, close to it. Oh boy. This might be my most disappointing Nintendo game of all time. And you wouldn't think it. The X-Men. Rough condition. But by face value, for those who haven't played it, you're thinking, how could it possibly get better than this? I mean, it even looks like a comic book, X-Men, it'll take all of your mutant powers to defeat Magneto. Let me tell you, it'll take a heck of a lot more than just your mutant powers to defeat Magneto. It requires adequate and sufficient production, programming, and this game does not have that. Unfortunately, Wolverine's claws, you barely even see them. And trying to hit an enemy without being hit yourself, you can forget it. Cyclops, I don't think he can shoot farther than he can spit. It's horrible. Absolutely terrible. For anybody who has fond memories of this game, my apologies. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. But for me, oh my gosh, man. I was shocked beyond words when I rented that game. And I could say worse, but I'm holding back. Snake, Rattle, and Roll. I remember this game. We would rent this game when there were no other options available. In the early days of Nintendo, the first couple of years, there wasn't a lot out there. You had your core hits, but besides that, it wasn't until I'd say probably, what would have been, 89-ish? Maybe 87, closer to 80, between 87, around 88, is when the titles just started pouring. And yeah, you had a lot more variety, but, basic game, it had its fun element, and it beat the boredom. Okay, now we've got Wizards and Warriors 3. So and as a kid, funny enough, man, and I don't know why, looking at this guy behind here reminded me of Jose Canseco. I thought to myself, gosh, that could be Jose Canseco. It still cracks me up thinking about that, but anyway, probably is. So, yeah, cool artwork. Wizards and Warriors was an interesting game by Acclaim, and it had it spawned a series. Definitely a strong cult following. The play control was different. I'll just say that. It was very different, but I had fun. You know, your guy would go up and he would kind of swing his sword, so to speak. I love the art again. Trading cards. And yeah, I remember the treasure chests. I remember hopping into the trees and exploring. Curious to know out of these games, if any of you guys have a favorite. And the last two games for today's video, Willow for Capcom. And I loved this movie. It's, as a kid, it's a feel-good movie. And I love it. And I love that Val Kilmer's in it. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer. The Mad Mardigan character is one of my favorite characters that favorite roles that he ever, took part of, produced, brought to life. And he's a hero, kind of anti-hero at first, but he becomes a hero. Warwick Davis, I mean, Wicket, that's his first role, I think, from after Wicket in Return of the Jedi. And is it Bav Lorna, I think, or Bav Morda? Bav Morda, maybe? Oh, yeah, that knight with the skull mask. Anyway, the game was pretty cool. I do remember having fun playing it, and I did play it through. But yeah, for anybody out there who maybe has not seen this with their kids, if you happen to have children or grandchildren, nieces and nephews, whatever, definitely have them watch Willow. It's enough to get them into the movie. Some moments, that could be considered to a kid scary, but not too scary. Last game of the day, Castle Quest by Nexoft. Gotta be honest with you, I don't really remember this game. And it's probably for good reason. But, I'm going to pop these games in and give them a play because it's been a long time. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think. Do you have a favorite title out of these particular titles? What are your favorite memories from the NES days? Do you like Final Fantasy? Do you like the series? I'd be curious to know. And one day I will do a deep dive into Final Fantasy, but for now, that's going to do it. Thank you all very much for joining me on next Saturday Supercade. I'm definitely going to have the CRT TV set and ready to go. And we'll continue with the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. But yeah, curious to hear from you guys. If is there a title that you see that you want me to play? I'll be more than happy to play it for you. And thank you all very much for your support, and have a wonderful rest of your day.